Hello and welcome back. This is the Eddie Wilson channel. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Mike Duddy. He is one of my brother knights in our council, and he's here to kind of give his feedback, and we're going to tell his story and talk a little bit more about our faith. So, Mike, I'd like to welcome you, and how you doing?
Thank you, Eddie. So far, so good. It's early. See how the day
so,
goes.
so you were one of the first people to give feedback at all about the episode I did with Alex, and I was very grateful that you listened, and the feedback that you did give was very constructive, and I thought it'd be nice if you could share it with everybody to give your thoughts on it.
Well, I thought the episode went very well. In the beginning, you guys were reading from a prepared statements. As long as you went off that, once you got off that, and went into your own exchange, I thought it went very, very well.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not very good at reading, and then me and Alex were kind of both nervous, so our nervous energy played off each other, and you read that. But yeah, thank you for that. And today I would like to just kind of, I really don't know much about you. Um, and this is kind of a way for me to get to know the Knights and that we get to know each other. And the first time I met you was I was taking the class to get the coaching certificate so I could coach in town.
Mhm.
And you run that class. So can you tell me about a little bit how you got involved in that?
Well, I had coached in town for about 35 years, in and out of town. Um, Played sports in town, youth football, youth baseball, youth wrestling. Moved into Montville High School at that point. Played a little baseball, but really concentrated on the wrestling program. I started taking over the youth program, coaching the youth program, right after high school, right after college. I'm sorry. I had Little League baseball right after high school. Baseball was one of my first loves. I tell people being a chiropractor is my second choice of vocation in life. If I had a first choice, I'd play center field and bat leadoff for the Yankees. Now that I'm in my 60s, I don't think I have the speed to cover center field anymore, but I'd be happy to bat leadoff and DH for them. After a couple of years with the youth program, Parsippany High School hired me on as their head wrestling coach. I did a couple of years Parsippany, then my practice took off, so I had to beg out of the coaching, at least on the professional level. So I took a couple of years off until Montville High School called up and said, we're in desperate need of a coach for this season. I think that was a 1990 season. So I jumped out of here and I go back and forth between the high school and my office for at least a year till they could settle on a more permanent fixture at the coaching level. At that point, the youth program reached out to me and said, we're in need of a coach again. So I felt like Al Pacino in The Godfather. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And I would go back and forth. I'd do a few years and then and try to take a break and then do another 5 years with them and take a break. Back in, trying to think what year it was, 2009, 2010. Uh, the youth that I had coached was now taking over the Bronco wrestling program. And they came to me and said, can you take the beginners? So I said, okay, as fine as I just get to play with the kids. I don't want to do paperwork, meetings, uniforms. I just want to boil it down to the nuts and bolts of working with the kids. I did that until my daughter started high school, which was about 9 years ago, maybe 10. And I thought I would retire. And so far, I've been good. I've been 10 years out of it. And I followed my daughter through high school and college. And then she played overseas internationally for USA in the Maccabee Games in 2000. That was 2 summers ago. So it would be 2022. And now she started coaching. This is her first year. She actually coached the Maccabee team in Argentina in January. And she just started field hockey practice as an assistant coach with Cherry Hill East High School. So she's sort of following in that pathway also.
So sports has been a part of your life. I mean, since the beginning, you've
Since
been
second grade.
nonstop with the sports.
Second grade, I started baseball. Third grade, your grandfather was my first football coach. Played football until eighth grade. Broke a leg playing all-star baseball between eighth grade freshman year. Couldn't get released to play football as a freshman. So I just stuck with wrestling and then a little baseball. But yeah, sports has been, we were three sports a season kids. We'd go from football to wrestling to baseball to football to wrestling to baseball. And it kept us out of trouble, kept us busy, gave us focus, gave us a little discipline. You had to be here at a certain time. You have to be there. You have to do this. You have to get in season, get in shape. I know we used to go down the shore. My grandparents had a house down the shore in Tom's River, and my father would send me with a football. And every morning I had to run from their house to the beach and back with a football under my arms. So it was all year long.
So when you were doing this, did you know at the time that it was doing these things like giving you discipline, or was this like something you thought about afterwards? Like, oh wow, all these things that I was doing, this routine that I did really helped me, or were you consciously aware that you were building something?
As a kid, you don't know what you're doing. You're following directions. My father was a disciplinarian, and he would make sure that we did what we were supposed to do when we were supposed to do it. Um, Hindsight 2020, all that discipline and all that focus followed me along into my studies and my professional life, and being on time for patients, dotting I's, crossing T's, running tests that I might need to diagnose or differentially diagnose. That's all part of being brought up with that kind of discipline.
That's great. So I wanted to read the passage now because this ties in perfectly to what we're saying, and I want to tie it into faith because I agree with you with sports. I played baseball, and I eventually went to jujitsu, and I didn't realize at the time either, what it really did for me until way after when I was off sports. I had my little breaks in between, and it really kind of threw me off. I got thrown off my rhythm, and then who you're listening to, there's nobody in charge except for I'm in charge, and I wasn't ready to be in charge yet. So I'm going to read a passage from First Corinthians chapter 9. Do you not know that in a race all the runners compete, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Well, I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I pummel my body and subdue it, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So the reason I read this passage is because when you practice, when you play, they say it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game and what are you playing for. So in sports, you're playing for the prize, and in faith, this passage is kind of pointing towards we're playing for the ultimate prize, which is eternal life. So what role do you think that plays when it comes to sports?
I think you're looking at the same idea of preparation for long-term success. Um, and especially in some sports different than others, that you have to continually prepare, continually pound, continually compete, and those results are not going to be immediate. When I get beginners on the wrestling team, I tell them it's going to be 3 years before we expect anything out of you. The first year, you're just going to go along, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to feel your way through. Your second year, you're going to see repetitive. It's going to say, oh, yeah, I did this before. I remember this. Then third year, we expect you to start stepping up. And in faith, it's essentially the same thing. It's a long-term goal. It's just, you see Nike's ad, just do it. You just close your eyes, turn everything off. When you go running or you're in the weight room or wherever you are, you just got to focus elsewhere and just do it. And you're not worried about what game that rep or that set got you. You're worried about what you're building long term. And when the game is over, where do you finish?
Right, right. Finish the race with integrity. Um, so when it comes to perseverance, self-control, integrity, are there any one of these that stand out when you're trying to teach guys that are maybe you could see that they're going through the struggle and maybe they're on the edge of kind of quitting? Like how do you break through to those people?
I've actually called up young athletes, and especially when they're young, they come out. Let me back up. My first year in seventh grade, the football coaches recruited me to wrestle. I knew nothing about wrestling. I went out for a couple of weeks. I was the standout football, standout baseball player. They threw me on a wrestling mat. I got pummeled. I didn't know what was going on. And I wasn't used to being to losing, so to speak, or not competing well. And I went back to my dad and said, I don't want to do this. And he said, give it a week or two, and then we'll talk about it. So we took a week or two off, and he said, you want to go back out there? And I said, no. He said, yes, you do. Get back out there. So we finished the season. At the end of the season, last match of the season, I break my collarbone. So
Mm.
they picked me up in an ambulance. They caught me off to a hospital. By the time I got home, my father looked at me and said, "You don't have to wrestle next year." I said, "No, now I want to wrestle." Now I had the whole season under me. I saw what it was all about, and I said, "No, I want to come back next year." And that was it. I saw those charts on the walls that had everybody's name on it, and you could see Joe Smith from Madison and Tommy Harris from Hanover Park, and they all listed the names. And I said, "Oh, I want to be on that list." And at the end, the winner got that list. I said, "Oh, I want that list. I want that piece of paper that has everybody's name on it that I beat." Um, so perseverance is certainly one of the big things. Just keep pounding. Just keep doing it. You always hear believe in the system. So you try to believe in the system, and I try to get that confidence and that trust from my kids. I'll get you there. Just stay with me. Just give me the season. At the end of the season, you don't like it, you're fine. We won't see you next year. But give me the season, follow my lead, and then at the end, my kids all come home with medals. And I really believe that. What did you do right that you brought people back? In the Catholic Church, you're sort of the same way. You have that priest, and what did he do right to bring a congregation back? What keeps people coming to church? What did they see that they appreciated or connected to?
Yeah, I feel like everything you're saying, like obedience plays a big part. I'm from the other side. From the coaching perspective, you can only control what you control. As a student, if you don't obey or you don't trust the system or the person teaching the system, you're not going to get very far. So, how do you deal with disobedience, let's say from a sports perspective, as a coach?
Well, it depends on what disobedience we're talking about. If they're in practice and they're not giving me 100%, I offer them the chance to go home. I've got enough kids in that practice room that I have to divide my focus over. If you don't want to be here, I've got other kids, please. And then, to be frank, it's the same thing in my office. If I have a patient who doesn't want to follow my directions, that's up to you, but you're not going to get better. You don't need me then. I also see the obedience being a father and raising kids. And I heard somebody make this comparison recently, and it really struck with me. It resonated. He said that we're essentially the coach of our kids. And it's our job as a parent to give them the training so that they're ready for life once it's their turn. And once they hit, I don't know, pick an age, 18 or 20 or 22, we're not the player and we're not the coach anymore. We have to step back on the sideline and let them compete. And I'm always there on the sideline for my kids. And I'll say, if you need me, ask me. My daughter called me yesterday and she had a couple of questions that had to deal with the ins and outs of coaching and how things worked and subbing at a school and what the nuances were. And I'm very happy to get on the phone, but she's got to play that game herself. So I can't jump in and say, "Oh, let me call the athletic director, let me call the sub place, and I'll cut that path for you." I have to prepare my child for the path, not the path for my child. That was a Tim Elmore quote, and that sticks with me a lot.
Do you expound on that? Who is Tim Elmore?
Well, in years ago, we used to deal with helicopter parents that would hover over their kids. Now we have snowplow parents that want to come in and they want to make everything right and they want their child just to have a clear path to coast down the road of life or sports or pick a subject. Um, I'm more the parent that will watch them persist and fail, and we giggle a little bit and say, "You got your ass kicked today, didn't you?" And then we'll go back and say, "What are we going to do next time? What's going to make it better?" And we're going to let them do it. I'm not going to do it. I had my time. When my son came up to wrestling, he had a counselor, and the counselor had said to me, "He's wrestling because he thinks you want him to wrestle." Not me. I have my time. I'm done. I got my medals, my trophies, my newspaper clippings. I've done it. If he wants to wrestling for somebody else, bad idea. It's too grueling a sport. And then we go into life. You're not living a life for somebody else either. There's too many ups and downs. You got to live your own life. You got to do it your own way. And again, whether it's my athletes or my patients or my kids, I said, I can lead you. I can give you direction. I can give you experience, but I can't do it for you. You have to stretch at home. You have to go out and run, on off season, off days of practice. You have to do it yourself. I can't lead you by the nose, your entire life.
That's very true. Very true. I've had that in my own life. They have to like for especially a one-on-one sport like wrestling. There's nobody out there on the mats with you. Nobody is going to pick up the slack for you when you're on the mat. Um, how would you say for football that's different? Like for a team activity when you have to work for the other guy, is there a difference in how you coach or go about it?
Well, now you have a teammate that you're relying on. So now there's an element of trust that comes in. So you're going to trust that that guy next to you is going to pick out the right block or open up the right hole. And so that becomes more of a coordination effort. So you develop more trust in that and in your teammates. They'll show you that drill where the person falls backwards and trust you to catch them. And it's the same thing in like football, baseball to an extent. If you're a catcher and you tell the pitcher, I want a curveball, and you're expecting that ball to drop, and all of a sudden it flies past your ear, you're going, wait a minute, we got a coordination issue here. And you'll see that catcher jog out to the mound and saying, did I not give you the right signal? Is the signal I used not the one or you see the catcher with a runner on first and third. He goes out and you'll see him give signals as to what the first and third play is, so that they know if that runner breaks, what are we going to do as a team? And that's family too. My daughter trusts that if I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to get her somewhere. She knows she's going to get there on time. So it's coordination in the family, it's coordination with a team, it's coordination in the church. And when we run the Knights of Columbus, we have volunteers, and we know they're going to show up on time. And we know you're going to cook, and you're going to clean, and you're going to deliver turkeys on Thanksgiving or pies on Easter or whatever it may be. We trust each other because we know it's going to get done.
That's one of the things I noticed right away. I mean, I've only just joined, been to a couple meetings, but that's the thing. Like people sign up, they put their name on the paper, and I mean, what I've seen so far, everybody shows up, the things get done,
Yep.
and there's something very reassuring, comforting about that. Because it is a struggle. Everybody has their life. I'm so busy doing this. Oh, I can't do that because there's a lot of excuse making, especially my generation. I mean, that's why you don't see my generation at Knights of Columbus. We make a lot of excuses.
Well,
So I'm trying to break that.
You're also still building a life. We're at the time now where our kids are out. My generation, the kids are not in the house. They're not a factor. I just tell my fiance I'm not going to be home on a Monday till 9 o'clock or so, and it's not that big a deal. I'll share two stories with you. My first experience with the Knights, we were setting up for the parish picnic, which in fact we have in 2 weeks. And they said, okay, we're all going to meet to set up the tents at 1 o'clock on a Saturday at the church. I said, fine, I'll be there. I got there at 1:45. It was already set up. I said, oh, you stinkers. Oh, you're worse than me. Is this how we're going to play the game? Okay. So I got there 15 minutes early. They were done already. Similarly, now the parish picnic coming up, we happen to be moving in 2 weeks. And it fell on the day of our move. And I went home and said to my fiancée, Suzanne, and she knows we've been talking about the parish picnic for weeks. And I went back to her and I said, oh, the parish picnic is on the day of our move. And she looked at me like, you don't dare. You better not be even thinking about it. I said, oh, no. So sorry, we'll be moving. I'll be here to help you move. They'll be able to work without me. But she knows what the commitment is for me. She knows if I make a commitment that I'm going to be there. And if I tell people, if I'm not where I'm supposed to be, there, go send an ambulance. I must be lying in the ditch somewhere. That's the only reason I don't get somewhere I'm supposed to be.
That's beautiful. I mean, I try to strive to be that. So what do you tell me? When I go help to set up the picnic, I got to show up an hour early now?
Well, I'll give it 15 minutes at least. Those guys will start drilling those stakes in the ground. I learned that lesson.
So when you joined the Knights, how old were you?
I had open heart surgery in December of 2007. My ex-wife asked for a divorce in February of 2008. So I went through a tough time physically, emotionally. Two guys from the club, Joe Romola, John Regan, approached me towards the end of 2008 and asked me to join. My ex-wife was not Catholic, so I didn't have support in the religious aspect of my life at that point in time. So I won't say that I drifted, but I wasn't as attentive because she wasn't going to church with me. When my daughter was born, I would take her to church. The baby would wake up at 6 in the morning, and just to get the baby moving, I would dress the baby, take her to church, uh, and that was our routine. But Joe and John, I think, realized that I needed some support, and I was able to give that focus at that point. So it was a win-win where I could focus on the religious aspect, and I volunteered almost my whole life here in London. As I said, I started volunteering as a baseball coach at 17 years old. Um, I was on the board of directors of the Montville Athletic League. I worked with Kiwanis for a while. I worked with Rotary for a while. Project graduation. So I was used to giving my time. So when they said, "Hey, how about coming on to the nights with us?" I said, it's not a bad idea. It gets me back focused on the religion, um, takes me off of the bad stuff, and gives me a positive outlet. And it's in town. My focus stays in town. So that was a win-win also.
Have you noticed a difference in your life since joining the Knights? Like over these years, how has your faith kind of changed or like evolved?
Well, you have a obvious support group, and I thought it very telling. We were in church, and one of our grand nights was doing a what recruitment for new members. And at one point, he said, "Would all the knights that are here today stand up?" And you looked. I was in the back of the church as I'm an usher for the 7 o'clock mass, 7:30 mass, and you saw heads popping up throughout the church, and it's like we're almost secret agents. We're there. Nobody
Yeah,
really knows we're there, but we're
yeah.
doing things behind the scene, whether it's the parish picnic or raising money for somebody in need or raising money for flood victims, and maybe it's across the globe that we're doing it, but nobody really knows. We're doing it quietly, behind the bushes almost.
No, I think that's kind of just the men that are attracted to this aren't the beat your chest rah rah guys that want to say I did this and I did this. They're not keeping track and showing their stats on social media. And one of the reasons I want to do this podcast specifically is to share your story so that people could see it. It's not to brag. It's just here's who we are. Here's why we joined. We're all sinners. We all need Christ, but we're in this together. Like Christ is working through us as a community, and our job is to pass it down. Like you're passing down to your kids the sports, the wrestling. Like you have to want it. If you don't want it, it won't happen. So we have to show them how much we wanted it, and I still want it. I'm still brand new into my reversion because I stepped away much worse than you. I stepped all the way out, like I didn't believe at all for years. But Christ brought me back, and I'm trying to pay it forward to.
Mhm.
Sorry.
And I would bring my daughter to any events we had. My daughter would go there on a 4th of July and sell soda behind that soda counter like a demon. They couldn't believe how much, and she had a good time. We had pancake breakfast. She would come and help serve on pancake breakfast. My daughter adored the Knights, and the Knights accepted her as one, almost as one of their own. And we're a very close knit group too. One of my early years, I was at the office. We got an email from one of our older Knights at the time. His battery died. He was stuck in his driveway. He had to go somewhere. And he put out an SOS and said, "Does anybody here have time to come jump me?" It happened to be my lunch hour. I responded. I shot down there. Do you know, after I finished jumping him, 4 other Knights showed up to help him out. So we're a group and we take care of each other. And I know if I needed something, and I have in the past, that somebody would jump up and say, let me help you. And as we've done for each other, I've done for them, they've done for me. I feel confident. And again, you're talking about feeling confident that somebody would help you. If I needed the help, I know they're there, and I'm there for them. And I think that I hope they understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it moves me in my spirit to just think about it. Like, I feel bad that I wasn't here earlier. Like this exists. People don't even know it exists that you guys are doing this. Not just this community, all the communities of the Knights. It's millions of people around the world, and they're doing this in the dark. So I'm just we're trying to shed some light on it.
Well, and I said this too. When my team huddles before a match, we don't rah rah, we don't shout. My message to them is no noise, break the huddle, talk on the mat. And essentially, we do the same thing with the Knights. We don't sit there, like you said, and pound our chest. We get together, we quietly, who needs what? Send a check for this out to them. Bring these bicycles out to them. But whatever we need, a wheelchair. Somebody needs a wheelchair. How can we get a wheelchair out to them? And we don't sit there and we don't advertise. Maybe we should advertise it more. But the same as I do with my team. We talk quietly. We'll do our talking in actions. I'd rather see the actions speak than, the shouting and yelling and, like you said, pounding the chest.
Did you learn that like watching sports, or was that just the way you were raised and taught while you were learning sports?
I think a little bit of both. I think we developed something like that. And it comes over time. It comes with exposure. You see people do things the right way. You see people do things the wrong way. Um, my daughter, when I was with my daughter, I would be cognizant to point out different approaches. The Jets had a quarterback a couple of years ago. They asked him a question in the press. The answer didn't come over very well. And I said to her, what do you think he should have said? What would have been a better answer? We went to a Yankee game, and we saw Derek Jeter airmail a ball over the first baseman's head. And he turned around and patted his chest and said, my bad, my mistake. I said, this guy's got the world by the horns. He's got more respect and money, and he's got everything somebody would ever want. And he's big enough to say, my mistake. 2 years ago, when my daughter was playing for USA, they met Argentina in the final. She was the goalie. And it went 2-2 overtime. It went tie at the regulation. They went one period overtime, still tied. Sudden death. Second period, sudden death. You can't say sudden death anymore. That's out of the rule book. You have to say sudden victory. Old school. I'm still old school. I apologize. It's bad form now to say sudden death. We have to say sudden victory. Yeah. So triple overtime is shootouts. They line up 5 of their best players against our goalie, my daughter, 5 of our best players against their goalie. The best the best out of 5 wins the game. Bottom line is my daughter performed better than the Argentinian goalie. USA comes home with a gold medal. They interviewed her on the field. And I think the question was, and it's on YouTube, you can find it. The question was something to the effect of, how does it feel to be the star of the game and win the gold medal for your team? And her response really struck me. It said, oh, it wasn't me. It was the entire team. They scored the goals. It wasn't me just blocking their goals. It was a team effort. Now, this was in the heat of battle. This was on the field, everybody celebrating. She didn't have time to think. That was trained into her. That was something she picked up on her own through, how old was she? 20 at the time? Through 20 years of watching sports and seeing the right way and the wrong way to do things. So I was very proud of her, more for the answer than the gold medal.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. One of my favorite all-time athletes was Barry Sanders. Never spiked the ball, hand the ball right to the ref.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that it just always spoke to me, and it was how I was taught and raised too. So I want to share this picture that you shared with me of you in 1970. This really moved me too when I saw this. So here we are, 1970. These young little lads, and there's you, right?
Yep.
Next to my grandfather.
We didn't even have the money to have the same color uniforms back in those days.
So you're saying this is 1970, you're in 3rd grade, this is your first year of football?
That might have been. I looked too old for 3rd grade there. I think your grandfather was my coach for a couple of years. So that could be 4th grade, I don't know, 5th grade. 70 would have put me at 10. I'd have to go back and see what grade a 10-year-old would be at.
That's about 4th grade, yeah.
That doesn't look like a 3rd grader, does it?
I can't really tell. They start to blend together, the ages.
Yeah.
So this is the man that
a couple years. Good man.
Yeah, he's the one that taught me, integrity and how to play and about baseball. One of the main things he told me about baseball is when you're up to bat, I'm swinging. That's how you go into the at bat. It's not, oh, guessing, am I going to swing or not, or thinking about it. No, I'm swinging, I'm swinging, I'm swinging, and if it's a way out of the thing, then I'm not swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a way that I approach life too. Is you got to go for it, go for it, go for it. If something comes in the way, you got to be ready to adjust,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to go.
Right.
Is there any lessons that you might remember from him, or a story you could share?
When the story, and he tells the story more than I did. Um, at one point, I wasn't doing something right. It escapes me what the drill was or what the skill was that he wanted me to do. And as a typical football coach, he got my attention in a loud manner. And he said something like, "Duddy, you're not doing that." Da, da, da. And I looked at him and I said, "But Mr. Regan, I'm trying." And that melted him. And he just put his arm around me and said, "I know you're trying, son. Go back in." And that just shut him down. And it was honestly, I was just a third or fourth grader saying, "I'm trying." And he said, "I know you're trying. Get back in there." So the patience he showed with us as beginners, amazing.
Do you have a lot of patience with the beginners that are giving you that same mistake over and over and over again?
Yeah, as long as they're trying, we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll just keep doing it. Um, there's some experts out there who tell you that you don't own a skill till you've done it 10,000 times. And if I'm working with the high schoolers, they have a grip of what 10,000 times really is. But when you're dealing with a second, third, fourth grader, they don't know 10,000 times. I'll say, do this move 10 times. Everybody break up, get a partner. I want to see you do it 10 times. And they think they'll hustle through 10 and be done. Do it 10 more times. Then do it 10 more times. And I think it's tougher. They'll tell you with a bad habit, it takes more than 10,000 to break a bad habit. 10,000 to earn, to own a skill. And then I don't even know what it is to break the bad habit out of it. But
Yeah, that's one of the things, in the passage we talk about. You're not doing things aimlessly. Like, you're not practicing aimlessly. You're not just trying to go through the motions. You're going through every rep with purpose. And then it's trained into you so that when the interview comes, if you're trained not to beat your chest and you don't do it over and over again, it's just natural.
and I was never the best wrestler on my team. I wasn't even the best wrestler in my family. So I understand not being able to get something or be able to perform at a level that you like to. Nobody worked harder than me. Nobody put in more effort than me. But I never reached the pinnacle that I wanted. But you keep plugging and you run the race to win. And as the Corinthians said, you run the race to win. I'm just not jogging. And I do that with everything in my life. I want to be the best. I don't always get there, but I want to be the best doctor, the best father, the best partner, the best knight, the best whatever I do. I want to be the best at it. I don't want to be second best at it. And if I don't, well, okay, I kick the can a little bit. I pout. And I go back and figure out what I have to do next time and don't make the same mistake. I'm a big believer that intelligence is not measured by how few mistakes you make, but how few you repeat. You learned a lesson.
Mhm.
You're not going to do that again, are you? We figured that out. Let's find another way to do that. Or what are we going to do to solve that issue? And I think that's how we have to go through life. We all make mistakes, whether it's in our relationships or professional or you name it. Child raising. Was I a perfect parent? Nobody's a perfect parent. I think I did pretty good. I might have changed a couple of things if I had a chance to go back and see how it turned out. And I'll tell my kids, I made the best decision based on the information I had at the time. Hindsight, you have a little more information. 2020, its vision is a little better. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have tried it that way. Maybe I should have tried it another way. And that's how we get through life. You date people. How many people marry one person that they've only dated one person? You make a mistake. Oh, maybe that one didn't work. This is going to work. Why didn't it work? And the same thing in my office with patients. I try it with doctors. They give medication. This medication didn't work. All right, let's go back and try another one. Try another technique. Try another approach, and see what works. Same thing with working with people. I'm sure the church has the same way. You have to approach different people differently. And even with the knights, we all can't do the same thing. That's why they'll tell us, can you do this? Can you do that? What's your strength? My strength, believe it or not, I do a little baking on the side. So when I was able to, I bake and I bring dessert for the people. That was my contribution. That's what I could do. We used to have a volleyball marathon at the high school that we volunteered for. and we'd have, okay, so I had a little bit of athletic background. I'll volunteer for the volleyball marathon. I'll play with the high schools. And then we had a couple of guys that we didn't see much during the year, but they showed up for volleyball. Help that they were 6'1" or 6'2", so there's their niche. They showed up and helped for volleyball. Nice thing about the Knights is you pick and choose. What can you help with? I can't help with the parish picnic this year. Past years I did. So you try to fit in where you fit in.
Yeah, one of my so I'm a fireman, and one of my first captains, one of the lines he used to always say is, "We can't all be Derek Jeter.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to be him, but everybody has a part to play. Especially for firefighting, this is exactly right. Not everybody gets to be on the tip of the hose line. That's the hero of the fire. They're the one that gets to put the fire out. There's got to be guys behind him moving around. There's got to be a pumper to get the water. There's got to be a chief coordinating. There's everybody that's got their part to play. So, yeah, that's it. That as long as we play our part to the best of our ability, you make a mistake, acknowledge it, own it, and don't make it again. And even if you do, repeat. What about this time? Because there's always mistakes coming, especially for our faith. Any sport, there's no perfect athlete. There's nobody that's undefeated all time. Father Time comes for everybody. A better guy comes, a hungrier guy. It's hard to stay hungry the whole time. I mean, look at Mike Tyson. Him at his hungriest would beat anybody. Once you start to lose the hunger, the hungrier guy comes up and gets you.
So sometimes it's a pacing. Sometimes you have to pace yourself and figure out what you can do and not burn out too quickly. But we even do that with the Knights at the end of a function. We'll sit back and say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Did we maximize our profits? Did we buy too much hot dogs or not enough hamburgers or pancakes or not sausage? So everything's looking back inside yourself and saying, what did you do? Was it Socrates that said a life without introspection isn't worth living? I think it was Socrates.
Yeah, that's close. That it's an unexamined life's not worth living.
Something, yeah, close enough. He said in the ancient Greek, so I'm sure there's some translation that goes on with that.
Sure. But it is all about questions. I mean, one of the things I focus on a lot is questions. And I don't know if you listen to Anthony Robbins much, but my dad used to have him on in the car. He had the tapes on repeat, listen to Anthony Robbins. And one of the things he said is, any question that you ask yourself, your brain's going to find the answer. So if you ask stupid questions, you're going to get stupid answers. If you ask questions, why am I so bad? Your brain's going to tell you why you're so bad. But if you say, how could I be better? What could I do? What am I doing wrong? How do I take responsibility? And you get more specific about your questions and you tailor them to what you're working towards, your brain will find the answer, or it's going to help you find somebody that has the answer. So, do you have anything to say for your fellow Knights that might be listening to this, and what you think about this whole process and the future of the Knights?
Well, the Knights always have a bright future because there's always going to be somebody that needs help, and we're always going to be there to help them one way or another. And again, we'll find a way. If somebody comes to us and says we need, and it might be something menial, like the church needs a flag, we had to get a flag, or carpeting. I know the boiler was an issue, but if somebody comes in and says we have a problem, we find a way to do it. What I like about the Knights is they're very positive. They can't say they don't say we can't do it because. They'll say we have to find a way to do it because. So they're problem solvers. And that's one of the good things about them. And somebody will raise their hand and say, oh, I can do that. We may say, oh, we need some silly little never heard of whatever. And somebody will raise their hand and say, I know where to get that. You do? There we go. So they're a great bunch of guys. They're a great bunch of guys. I'm very honored and pleased to be a part of that program.
Beautiful. You have anything else before we wrap this thing up?
I'm good.
All right, so I'm just going to say a quick prayer for us and then take us out with a song. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
I just want to thank you, Lord, for giving me the courage and for forgiving